Magne and Vidar are lying unconscious on the pier when an ambulance pulls up. One of the paramedics rushes to Magne with a defibrillator and begins to administer aid. After receiving the shock, Magne instantly regains consciousness and emits a powerful wave that throws the man several meters away. While the second medic tries to help his buddy, Magne approaches Vidar's body. Vidar opens his eyes and whispers the words of a threat. Magne will die before the new moon comes. The lad runs away. At this time, in the nursing home, one of the residents, Wotan Wagner, complains to the orderly Halvor about the broken wheelchair. Magne runs into the mountains. He is still shaken by the battle and turns to the bird flying above, blaming it for everything that has happened to him. Suddenly, Magne finds himself in the netherworld, and before him stands the ancient sorceress, Volva, who takes the form of Isolde. She reminds him that he must now obtain weapons and find friends, for the other gods will surely come to his aid. Volva asks him not to come here, because the giants might kill her too. Then she scoops up something from the glowing ball and blows it in the guy's face. Magne is immediately alone on the mountain. Annoyed, Vidar rushes to his house and tells Ren and Saxa about the battle that took place. In the meantime, a group of young people are hanging out at a table in a street cafe when Magne comes running to them looking for the cashier. No one knows where she is, but everyone raves about Laurit's speech at the feast. Fjord then returns home and announces that he has not killed Gry. Not only that, he's going to leave home and live with the girl he loves. The boy does not want to take part in the coming battle. When he arrives at Gry's house, he announces his separation from his family. Magne reminds Lauritz of the stories of Ragnarok, but the brother does not take these ancient stories seriously. To prove his new identity, Magne bends a metal bat in front of his brother. Lauritz asks for time to think over what he has said. The next day, the head of the Edda police appears on TV and announces that an investigation has begun into Utul Industries, for which a well-known expert is coming to town. Lauritz is watching the broadcast, devouring food. Suddenly, Turid arrives, and she is surprised by his son's voraciousness. In his room, Magne observes an obvious change in his appearance. His muscles are getting bigger, and he's getting even stronger. Later, Turid invites the boys to celebrate their father's birthday and shows them a photo of them together. The family goes to their father's grave, where Lauritz makes the statement that the father would obviously be proud of a son who looks like a woman and uses makeup. Here, Magne looks like his father, but Lauritz looks like he's from a different family. Turid smoothes over the unpleasant conversation. On their way home, they meet Erich, and he informs them that by the school board's decision, Magne can return to school. At that moment, Turid asks for help. The car won't start. So Magne pushes the car to the car repair shop, where they are greeted by Harry, the mechanic. And there, Magne gets a clue where he can get the hammer. In the meantime, Vidar is watching a report on TV about the barrels found, while the women take the ancient weapon down. Saxa is annoyed by her refusal to take her in, since she is a member of the family. Agreeing to this, Vidar takes her to the factory and shows her the production, when suddenly police arrive. Vidar acts arrogant and defiant, but the girl smooths over her father's behavior at a crucial moment, apologizing for the problems she has caused and promising to do everything she can to solve them. Her father has to admit that she's right. Meanwhile, Magne makes a drawing of Thor's hammer. Turid, in the meantime, comes to the store and apologizes to Venki for the words she spoke. And the woman asks her to inform his son that he will meet the god on the bridge, for which he must remember Volva's ancient prophecy. Hearing these words, Magne runs to the bridge. He memorizes the first words of the prophecy and tries to read them to passers-by. But everyone just passes by, except Iman, who takes Wotan out for a walk. Magne reads a few lines, and the girl continues the text. They go home to Magne, and the girl tells him how Wenke activated her powers, saying she was special. Then she tells him to find the chief warrior and help him. Meanwhile, Lauritz arrives at the grill cafe and meets the waiter. He unmistakably identifies the guy as gay and shows his sympathy. Meanwhile, Magne tries to find out about Iman's powers, but the girl can't recall anything supernatural. Back at home, Lauritz shares his hopes with his mother and informs her that young people are coming over tonight to have a party. At this moment, they hear very distinctive noises from Magne's room. Mother and son smile. Apparently, Magne has found himself a girlfriend. But it turns out that the boy, demonstrating his strength, has to put Iman on a chair and lift her up with one hand, while she bangs on the ceiling and screams. In the evening, fun reigns in the turret house, to which Gry and Thor also come. And Iman finally finds her power. She can make anyone do what she wants. And she demonstrates it on one of the guys, who, at her command, brings her a drink by moving on his knees. She seems to be the embodiment of the goddess of love and fertility, Freya. Laurit's new mate never arrives, and the distraught lad complains to his mother. He's just ugly. Tipsy Turret reveals the truth to her son. In the morning, Iman and Magne arrive at the workshop, and the girl uses her powers to force Harry to make a hammer from Magne's drawing. In the meantime, Turret goes to Vidar and confesses to him that on the one night they once spent together, she became pregnant. And now is the time when Lauritz needs a man's support very much. And Vidar thanks the woman. In the evening, on his way home, Magne sees Vidar embracing Lauritz. At night, Turret tries to justify herself to Lauritz. She has never regretted giving birth to him. And she won't mind if the boy gets to know his real father better, which Magne dislikes very much. In Jotunheim, Ran trains with her fighting bow, reminding Saxa of her spear. But the girl is completely immersed in the business of the factory. At this point, Vidar informs her of her newfound son, which causes Ran to object. Giants cannot have children by mortals. But Vidar cites fate. And Magne breaks the news to Iman. He then learns that the girl was born in Sri Lanka, but grew up in a Norwegian family. She boasts that she can get anything she wants with her powers, which provokes Magne's condemnation. The powers were not given to get new clothes or cheat shopkeepers. At this point, Harry brings the hammer. Lauritz comes to Vidar, and he offers to take a motorcycle ride. Meanwhile, Magne and Iman are going to test the hammer, for the real one must always return to Odin, but the hammer just takes off. Making a stop in the mountain, Vidar tries to ferret out something about Magne, but Lauritz gets it right away. Magne retrieves his hammer, but cannot understand why it does not work. Meanwhile, Saxa continues to investigate the company's affairs and makes a statement to reporters. Meanwhile, a company of young people are sitting in a grill bar and watching the news. The guys are shocked by the admission that it's dangerous to drink tap water because that's what they were drinking. Thor hears Saxa's apology and leaves. One of the girls suggests protesting against the U-Tools who have mucked up the fjord. Turret is writing a note to her sons to not drink the tap water when Lauritz and Vidar enter the house. The boy is thrilled, his father has given him a motorcycle. In the meantime, Ran is looking at the pictures in the family album and suddenly brushes away a tear. At this moment, Vidar enters the house and announces that he is ready to take in his new son, which prompts a harsh protest from Ran. Saxa is struck by the abundance of emotion, for Ran has never been jealous of her husband. In the evening, Magne goes to the grill bar, and Saxa arrives there as well. Seeing her, the guy pulls out a knife, but the girl just provokes him. At the end of their conversation, they come to the conclusion that their families have lost their minds. Cisterns of drinking water arrive in Edda, and Thor receives an invitation from Ran to talk. The woman has arrived at Gry's house and is waiting outside. He listens to his mother's account about the changes in the family and refuses to call Ran his mother. They are merely feigning their relationship. He has no intention of going back and wants nothing to do with the firm. Angry, Ran sees the Sayer family and tries to run them over with her car. But Magne manages to react and pushes his loved ones away. Ran apologizes, pretending to have lost control, but Magne doesn't believe her. He grabs the hammer and runs to Wenke. The old woman is frightened. The giants will kill her if they see them together. She is amazed at Magne's attempt to make the hammer, because you can't just get it. She promises to tell him how to forge the real Mjolnir. After all, the giants have an ancient weapon with which they can kill anyone. She begins the story of the eternal fire of the ancient gods, but notices Ran and hides in the building, promising Magne to tell him everything when he meets her on the mountain. Lauritz comes to Jotunheim and is treated to mead. Vidar tells him that the lad is not human and gives him the heart of a deer he has harvested for him. Lauritz eats the meat and visions of ancient giants flash before him. Vidar grabs his hand and shoves it into the fire. The boy screams, but as he pulls his hand out, the burn disappears right before his eyes. He is now invulnerable. Ran sees this and becomes enraged. While the spouses are quarreling, Lauritz goes to the bathroom and after washing his face sees in the mirror the ancient scoffer, half-brother of Odin and father of the serpent Midgardsorm, Loki. And he understands he is his incarnation. Back in the room, he hears Rand say that the cashier is really Volva, and she's going to kill her before Magne gets the hammer. Meanwhile, Magne comes for Lauritz at Jotunheim. He asks his brother to return home, and he reluctantly agrees and tells him of Rand's intentions. Magne runs to Wenki. Meanwhile, she closes up store and goes home. But she sees Rand's car and takes off into the sky as a bird. Magne sees her fly away and is glad everything has turned out to be alright. But suddenly, Rand draws her bow and pierces the bird with her arrow. The bird falls near the orphanage. The wounded woman reaches Wotan, hands him her medallion and asks him to help Magne. Magne rushes to her, takes her head in his hands, but the woman turns to ash. Magne cries over what was just his mentor, then runs to Rand's car and threatens to kill her. But the woman is very calm. She reassures the witnesses that the boy is simply sick. Iman pulls him away with difficulty. At night, Magne has a dream in which Isolde begs him not to give up. In the morning, the radio announces that the young people of the town are planning a protest. Turid speaks of Magne's intemperance. You should not shout at the school principal in the middle of the street. To this, Magne reminds her of the attempted murder of their family. But Turid is more concerned about the irrepressible appetite of Lauritz, who boasts to his brother of his newly acquired invulnerability. Magne asks to prove his loyalty and to help break into the Utul's house because he thinks the eternal fire burns in their hearth. Lauritz promises to help. Posters and appeals are hung all over Edda to shut down the harmful Utul's production, while Fjord and Gry bring her father to the hospital. The girl is grateful to her boyfriend for his support and is delighted when the boy agrees to spend Saturday night with her family. Meanwhile, Wotan examines Wenki's locket and puts it on himself. And at that moment he is awakened to who he really is, the king of the gods, Odin, who sacrificed a night to know eternal wisdom and is able to see the present, past and the future. He is Thor's father and Loki's twin. Wotan begins to behave intelligently and calls corpsman Halvar a dark elf, which puzzles the man. Meanwhile, Magne continues his training and studies Scandinavian myths, and then sends a message to Iman that he intends to go to Jotunheim to forge a hammer there. In the meantime, Turid and Lauritz go to the store. And while Turid is shopping, the boy tortures the man he meets, Erich, with questions about Loki. He tells him that Loki was the father of the snake, Midgard's Orm, which leads him to believe that Loki was the world's first transgender man. Saxa and Vidar arrive at the square, where people are getting clean water in canisters. The girl is convinced that they should show their closeness to the people, and then everything will work out, especially since the youth protests are planned. That's where Turid and Lauritz meet them, and the latter asks to see Vidar. Saxa goes to the factory to attend to business. When Turid arrives home, she tells them that Lauritz has gone to Jotunheim, which angers Magne. They had a deal. Apparently his brother has chosen their side. Meanwhile, Lauritz watches Vidar cook and confesses that he would like to come here more often. When he returns home, he is not given a warm welcome by his brother. But Lauritz earns forgiveness by showing Magne the entrance key to Jotunheim he received from Vidar. Meanwhile, there is a dinner party at Gry's house. The father makes a lot of jokes and thanks everyone for what they have been in his life. Gry does not understand what's going on, but is glad for a good evening. In the evening, the brothers enter the Utul house when no one is there. Magne sticks his hammer into the burning hearth, with absolutely no idea what's going to happen. And when nothing happens, Vidar walks through the door. Tripping over the backpack left by Magne, Utul pulls out the hammer. Magne has to come out and admits it's his thing. Vidar realizes what they were up to and kicks the guys out. When they return home, they find Erich at the table, who tells them that Mjolnir was forged by stunted creatures that people called dwarfs. Loki became Odin's sibling by swearing on his blood, and when their blood mixed, he became half god, half giant. At night, Ren tries to persuade Vidar to forget about Lauritz's deception, and the latter promises to kill the boy. In the morning, Wotan gives blood and admits to Iman that he is Odin. The girl summons Magne, who at that moment is invited to the protest against the Utuls. Thor, who is immediately present, refuses to go with everyone else. Magne arrives at a nursing home where Wotan greets him, but addresses Lauritz rather sternly. He does not believe the boy and tells him to leave, despite Magne's attempt to convince him otherwise. Loki is a traitor by nature, he cannot be trusted. Lauritz is about to leave, but then he sees a table with the blood tests. He tricks the nurse, pulls out Wotan's blood, and injects a portion into his own vein. In the meantime, Thor watches the protest taking place at the factory gate. Gry goes there with him and supports Magne, believing that it is to his credit. Saxa urges her father to respond, at which point Thor joins the protesters. He steps forward and makes a speech, acknowledging the Utul's guilt and promising to do whatever he can to rectify the situation. After all, we all share the same planet. Looking at this, Lauritz is on the fence. Should he go to Vidar or support his brother? At that moment, Gry receives a text message and the girl runs away. Thor rushes after her, and Lauritz stops Vidar's car and tells him that he wants to go with him. He gets in his car and makes an indecent gesture to everyone. Gry and Thor rush to the hospital, where the girl's mother tells them about the father's suicide. The man swallowed all the sleeping pills and could not be saved. Vidar and Lauritz arrive at Utelheim. The father tells the boy about how the people used to worship them and carry gifts. He demonstrates to the boy that he can change his appearance. So when he supposedly grew old, the place was taken by his son. Vidar was willing to do anything for him, even making him invulnerable. The truth is, there is a weapon that will kill anyone. Giants do not forgive treachery. Suddenly, Magne bursts into the house. He will not let his brother be hurt. Armed with the axe, Vidar rushes at the lad. A fierce fight ensues, with the enemies exchanging blows. While delivering the next blow, Vidar drives the axe into the wall. Magne pushes the man away, and he lands on the edge of the axe sticking out of the wall. His body turns to ash, which terrifies Magne. Magne suffers deeply from all that has happened and feels guilty about Vidar's murder and the loss of Lauritz, but he cannot confess this to his mother, who is immersed in a relationship with Erich. But she is shaken by the news of Vidar's death. The mother sympathizes with her son, and he casts hateful glances at his brother. Gry offers her condolences to Thor, but the latter stuns the girl with a confession that he did not love his father. Meanwhile, Ren urges Saxa to take revenge, though the daughter is cautious about what has happened. They do not know exactly what has happened, they must be careful. But Ren is fixated on hating Lauritz and plans to take revenge on him specifically. But for now, they announce that Vidar died of a heart attack. The rules of Utul Industries state that the rights of ownership should pass to the eldest son, but Saxa intends to usurp the position. Exhausted, Magne goes to Thor and confesses to the murder of his father. By the rules of the ancient world, he must give satisfaction to a relative of the deceased, but the younger Utul refuses to take revenge. Upon returning home, Magne discovers forbidding signs on the entrance to his brother's room. Lauritz accuses him of murder. His father was merely going to teach him a lesson. In the meantime, Wotan and Iman arrive at Harry's workshop for the old man's baby carriage, but he cannot do anything about the worn-out mechanism. Magne arrives there as well, and after hearing congratulations on his victory, sharply objects. He has killed a man, and he refuses to go to war. Distraught Lauritz tells the barman that the doctors have discovered a tapeworm parasite inside him, and he begins treatment. In the meantime, Gry and Thor are eating ice cream on the porch of the barber shop, and the girl admits that her mother intends to move from Edda to the big city. Thor decides to go with her. He's not going to attend Vidar's funeral. Turid and Magne are summoned to the school, where the boy is given permission to take his final exam and is assigned a topic: Scandinavian myths. After that, Iman tries to convince Magne to return to the battle group. After all, there is no war without casualties. Besides Vidar, there are still giants left, among them his brother. Hearing about Lauritz, Magne loses his temper, and his brother, watching the conversation from afar, sees lights sparking everywhere. Saxa takes on the firm's business with determination, and one day talks to Turid, convincing her not to mix emotion and work. Satisfied, the woman thanks the girl for her understanding. Furious, Iman goes to the sports club, where she notices Harry. The girl challenges him to a fight. The guy dismisses it with a joke. Iman gives him a good kicking, but falling down and swallowing blood, the boy gets up again and again. He never gives up. Later, Iman leads him to the old man. She has found the fighter. Apparently, his soul used to live in the body of Tyr, a god of war known for his courage and strength, who lost his arm in a battle with the wolf Fenrir, sacrificing himself to save his friends. Meanwhile, the youths discuss the protest against the util factories and invite Magne to participate, not noticing Saxa, who enters the cafe. The guy is uncomfortable in front of her, but he doesn't know how to stop the conversation. It is Saxa herself who does this. Magne apologizes for losing a father, and the girl accepts the apology. At home, Lauritz takes his medicine and remembers Vidar bitterly. The mother tries to reconcile the brothers, and while Lauritz agrees to hug his brother, he is twisted in violent pain. The boy is taken to the hospital, and the doctors are shocked to see the size of the parasite inside the man. He undergoes surgery, but the worm survives. The doctors intend to examine it, because they have never seen anything like it before, but Lauritz intends to keep it. That evening, Thor and Saxa meet in a secluded spot to discuss the matter. Thor speaks of Magne's guilt and of his intention to leave with Gry. His sister accuses him of cowardice and she leaves. The day of Vidar's funeral arrives. Magne announces that he is not going to the funeral, but his mother asks him to do so for Lauritz's sake. At this point, the boy leaves the room. He has changed his image again and now looks very much like his father. Magne runs away, unable to see his brother. He comes to the mountain and asks for his powers. He has killed the man and lost his brother. Receiving no answer, Magne goes to the church, where he is rebuked by Lauritz, who sits in the pew of the Util family. The inhabitants of Edda sing psalms, remembering Vidar, without noticing the storm that is coming upon the city. The priest reads a scripture recalling the son's duty to his father, and this is heard by Thor, who does come to the funeral. Suddenly there is a thunderclap. Magne prays for his powers to be taken away, and Thor goes to his father's coffin. And the moment the coffin is carried out of the altar, there is a tremendous thunderclap, and all the panes of glass fly out of the windows. Later, Gry and her mother pack up their belongings. The girl waits for Thor, but he does not come. Instead, it's Magne who comes to say goodbye to the girl. She then goes up to Thor's house to fetch him. But suddenly, he refuses to go. There is something more precious than her. Seeing the change in his eyes, Gry runs away and asks her mother to leave quickly. The younger Util goes to the top of the mountain and pulls out the ancient Vidar world axe buried there. The monstrous serpent Midgardsorm is the spawn of Loki. Thor defeats the serpent in the last battle of Ragnarok. Magne awakens from a terrible dream. Isolde looks at him with a reproachful look. He falls down the stairs, he cannot see a thing. Turid brings him his spectacles. Magne understands what has happened. The strength has failed him. That same morning, Saxa admonishes Ren. The woman is abusing alcohol, and Ren wonders whether the girl is indifferent to Vidar's death. The girl nods in agreement. She does not feel anything. She hurries to the factory, but when she enters the floor, she finds Thor at the desk. He has assumed the duties of the supervisor according to the statute. He exposes Saxa and removes the photo with Gry. Magne goes to Wotan, but he chases the weakling away. Neither Iman nor Harry recognize him anymore. Grieving Lauritz goes to Utilheim, where Rand demands his key back and confirms that Vidar intended to kill him. Meanwhile, Magne is preparing for the exam when Erich makes a remark. The guy puts too much emphasis on the story everyone already knows. It would be much better if you looked at those events from a modern perspective. Magne objects. If good triumphs over evil, it becomes evil itself. Erich is pleased. The moral of the myths is very interesting stuff. At this point, Iman discovers her English grades and becomes indignant. Her language skills are perfect. The grades are all wrong. The girl goes to Ran and uses her powers to get her grades corrected. Meanwhile, Turid discovers that Lauritz has some kind of monster in the aquarium, which she finds disgusting. Magne learns that Iman has used her powers to change the grades. He reminds her that the powers are not for personal use. But the girl retorts, he's nobody now, and she does not care what he thinks. Turid demands that the creature be removed from the house, but she is forced to agree to her son's wish when he reminds her of the loss of his father. On his way home, Magne witnesses Harry beating up a guy who wanted to cheat and did not pay for gas. He intervenes, but again receives a reminder that his opinion is no longer valued. Later, he asks Lauritz to forgive him, for he sincerely wanted to protect his brother. He renounced his powers, and they were taken away. The brothers embrace, but Loki refuses to help in the battle. Thor begins to run the firm's affairs with an iron fist and fires Turret for personal reasons. Upon learning this, Magne rushes to the factory and attacks Thor, oblivious to the fact that his powers no longer exist. Utul ends up beating him and leaving him lying in the parking lot, telling him he doesn't even deserve to die. The battered lad goes to Wotan and asks for permission to rejoin the ranks of the fighters on the condition that he won't kill, but he is reminded that there is no other way of doing it. After Thor's return, Ran takes his side, especially since Magne has lost his powers. Now the company is the first priority. Saxa is against the new policy, but nobody listens to her. Magne's new sympathizer, Signy, urges the guy to keep fighting Utul Industries, while Saxa convinces Lauritz to vote against Thor. After all, he is a member of the family. In exchange, she offers him the key to Utelheim and money. In the evening, Lauritz comes to the Utuls, and Thor has to greet his brother. Meanwhile, Magne goes for a run and sees the installation of the stone on Isolde's tomb. After dinner, Thor inquires about Lauritz's expectations. He reminds him that Lauritz is also a giant. Thor is willing to buy his vote, because he has much more money than Saxa does. Ran takes Lauritz home and warns him to stay away from her family. Lauritz scoffs. Even as a bastard, he is related to Vidar, while the others are not really family. The whole thing is a farce to those around them, as they are barren. Enraged, Ran follows him into the house and attacks Lauritz. Magne tries to help, but to no avail. Ran openly promises to destroy his family, for the powers have left Magne. But suddenly Turret comes home and Ran leaves. Magne decides to do what he can to win the war and returns to Wotan to regain his powers. Wotan reminds him that his greatest weapon is Mjolnir, his only chance against the giants. Magne agrees to lie to Lauritz and get the key to Utelheim. The team of warriors go to the Utul's factory, as Odin reminds them shortly before that they have everything they need to make the hammer, Volva's feather and Ran's arrowhead. At the mention of the dwarf's name, Halvor enters the room. All that remains is to find the eternal flame, which can only be found somewhere in the factory. Once inside, the team goes to the old warehouse, but suddenly they see guards. Wotan, Odin, is summoned to divert their attention while they forge the hammer. The old man comes out into the light and pretends he can't walk. The guards are puzzled, but remembering their orders to guard this building particularly closely, they take the old man to the gatehouse, reporting the incident to Thor. Harry intends to break the lock on the warehouse, but Magne pulls out the key he snatched from Lauritz, lying that he intends to impress Signy by hanging a protest banner in the Utul warehouse. Once inside, the team begins looking for the fire, but there is no such thing in sight. Magne reads the words of the saga, and everyone understands there must be a dungeon. It must be nearby, and while Iman stays behind to keep watch, the others descend into the cellar and find the ancient forge with the eternal fire blazing. That's when Thor arrives at the factory, and while the team is working on the hammer, Iman comes out to fight. Under the blows of the sledgehammer, the ancient iron, the feather and the tip of the giant's weapon are fused together. Meanwhile, upstairs there's a deadly battle, and Iman begins to suffer defeat. Harry asks to finish the job, and he goes up to rescue his friend. All that remains is to chop the hilt, but Halvor has never done such a thing, and it comes out too short. But Magne approves of the dwarf's work, cools the finished hammer and hurries upstairs. Harry orders everyone to run and restrains Thor himself, but the man throwing him back against the door slams it shut, amputating a part of his arm. Iman returns to help, ordering Magne to remove the hammer from the factory. The police arrive, and now Halvor goes to them, diverting attention from Magne. The boy gets out of the factory and goes home, where he is greeted by his mother and brother, congratulating Magne on his birthday, which he has completely forgotten about. The media reports about a break-in at the factory, a protest banner posted, and the arrest of 4 people. Magne admits that he too was part of the group, and contrary to his fears, Turret takes it calmly. Without even unpacking the presents, Magne goes to the mountain and tries to abandon Mjolnir, but the strength never returns. Magne calls Iman, the hammer doesn't work, and she tells him to do whatever it takes to succeed. He returns home, where Turret asks the boys to go get burgers. They go to a cafe, where Signy approves of the action, and Lauritz tries to get the bartender's attention. At this time, there is a report on TV about the impending closure of the Utul factories, because it has been proven that the production has polluted the environment. In addition, tax evasion has been revealed. Saxa also listens to this report. She tries to rectify the situation and asks for a press conference. Meanwhile, the director of the orphanage fires Iman and Halvor, which provokes protests from the residents. Wotan gives a fiery speech thanking the real heroes and sings the national anthem in their honor. Magne is trying to figure out what to do with Mjolnir when Turid asks her to bring Laurit's things. She's afraid to go into his room because of the horrible pet. Confused, the boy goes into the room and sees a nightmarish worm, a veritable spawn of hell. Lauritz arrives at the cafe where Iman and Harry are resting and catches the bartender in the arms of the expert. The disappointed guy walks away. Meanwhile, Fjord announces that he is moving his production to Asia, where governments are more loyal to business. Turid goes to work at the store for the first time that day. Meanwhile, many residents of Edda are afraid that they might lose their jobs and homes. Lauritz, who has given up hope of finding love, feeds his worm, while Magne rereads the ancient tales of Thor again and again. And suddenly it hits him: Thor was created by lightning. And then there is a news announcement on TV that the Norwegian government is backing down on closing the U-Tools factories, as it realized that it will lead to massive job losses. Besides, the owners have promised to fix the spill. Fjord celebrates his victory, while Magne is outraged. His rage electrifies the air around him. He then hears a knocking sound coming from his room. The boy rushes upstairs, sees that the window is open and the hammer is twitching. He picks up Mjolnir, and at that moment Lauritz enters the room too. Lauritz realizes that his brother lied to him. He crafted a weapon that can kill him too. Without answering, Magne goes out into the storm, extends the hammer to the sky, and awakens Mjolnir, holding it in the air until lightning strikes it. His powers return. In Jotunheim, Fjord and Ran learn that Saxa has given the key to Lauritz and punish her for her treachery. After that, they leave to kill the boy. Magne goes to Jotunheim to face Fjord, but finds Saxa beaten. She sees the hammer and he suddenly feels sorry for the wounded girl. But she does not tell him anything about her family's intention to kill Lauritz. Meanwhile, Lauritz is home alone and hears the enemies approach the house. Saxa tries to persuade Magne to act together while Lauritz hides in the kitchen. Ran does not notice him. Magne understands Saxa's intentions, and Ran hears the sound the worm makes in the room. Thinking she has put Magne's vigilance to sleep, Saxa rushes for the hammer, but Magne is ahead of her and is ready to drop the hammer on her head. Meanwhile, Fjord catches Lauritz. In Jotunheim, a spark flashes between the young men and they grow close. Lauritz begs for mercy and declares that he alone possesses a weapon that can kill Magne. As Fjord and Ren are about to leave, Magne appears on the street and attacks them with the Mjolnir. The hammer hits the U-Tool's car and it explodes. Magne picks up Lauritz, who is battered but still alive, and he promises to forgive his brother for deceiving him. In the morning, he carries his creepy pet to the shore of the morass, and after kissing it, lets it go free. He wishes his creature to go big and strong and to avenge all his enemies. Ren and Fjord watch this from the shore. The show has had mixed reviews, from good to outright bad. But there's one thing that the viewers agree on: the story is quite compelling. The problem of today, environment, is organically integrated into the plot as one of the key elements of the story. And of course it's impossible to stay indifferent to the views of the harsh but so beautiful Scandinavian nature.